how the private sector can actually support and work together for rural development. Now, let me invite back on stage Carmen Roberts and our distinguished guests to share their insights on this important issue. So please, Carmen, rejoin us on stage, and joining her is Paras Lumba, founder of Global Himalayan Expedition, and Ricardo Fernandez Flores, CEO of Destinia. Please welcome them on stage.
Thank you very much. Well, we're here to talk private partnerships and rural tourism. So let's kick off in a different way. Let's start with one key word. Can you identify one key challenge? Each of you give me one word that you face in your day-to-day life in trying to make rural tourism a success. What is your one key challenge? Let's start with you, Ricardo.
You love this kind of thing,
Yeah.
that's
One
just
word,
one keyword.
word.
I would say after the event, entrepreneurship.
Entrepreneurship.
Will be my keyword, yeah.
Okay, and what about you, Paris? One word.
I think for the public-private partnership, the biggest challenge has always been the ownership. One word is ownership.
Ownership, okay. So let's revisit this. Entrepreneurship, what's the issue there? Let's expand. How is this a big challenge?
I guess it's quite similar to ownership, to be honest. The idea is, okay, if you look at the people that today has been here on the stage, we have seen a lot of mayors, but what I'm seeing is a lot of public entrepreneurs that is taking something from scratch and then are creating jobs, creating wealth, and creating opportunities for people to live in the rural areas. And I guess all of us need more entrepreneurs and find and train the entrepreneurs and support them in order to move forward. For the public industry, for sure, they can help in the promotion and creating the destination, but they need entrepreneurs in order to create the product, and also they need intermediaries like us, you know, the distributors, in order to really impact massively in the world and sell the product and try to really move to another stage. But I say entrepreneurship is fundamental for what we are speaking about today.
Okay, and is ownership something similar?
Yeah, almost similar, but let me break it down. I mean, I won't call it public-private partnership. There is another element which is for rural tourism. It's called the community, the participation of community. And because we have been working in the Himalayas, electrifying villages for so many years now, what we have seen is that whenever there is a work to be done, and there is intent from both the sides, both private, public, and community, the ownership is always not coming forward. Who is taking the first step? And that's where I've seen, if you mobilize the community, they do a pilot. And then the private sector comes in to show another pilot. And then you have the government, you know, getting mobilized and making sense. So I think the first mover should always be public, because till the time they don't put investment in, the private sector will not mobilize. And community can only do so much. But I think that's the key element where things go off and the challenge is big.
Who should have the ownership, though?
I think all the stakeholders should have equal ownership, but the advantage, the investment should start from public first, because that's the role of it. I mean, think of it, I mean, in a remote village, if you don't have a road, if you don't have connectivity, nothing can happen. So government needs to put those basic infrastructure up, and I'm sure things follow afterwards.
Yeah, this is quite interesting. Can I add something?
Yes, of course.
I guess, you know, the public sector needs to identify the opportunity to put the minimum infrastructure in order to move forward. But after that, the ownership, the only that makes sense is the private sector take the ownership. Because you need the people really involved. And it's not a matter of public sector, it's a matter of people or your community or whatever.
And to be doing it sustainably. I think sustainable development is really key now, especially since the pandemic. There's been more emphasis on this. So how do we bridge the gap between the public and private partnerships and making it sustainable? And bear in mind, there's so much greenwashing these days. How you know, with you, let's start with you, Paris, because you were bringing solar panels to Himalayan villages. This must have been quite difficult at the start.
Yeah, the mountains are quite high. You have to climb almost 5,000 meters to reach the other side of the mountain, where there's a 1,000-year-old village waiting for you. So it's emotional, but it gives you an idea that this is what it takes to electrify a village. But one of the key aspects, as you mentioned, is where you can actually bridge the gap, is during the discussion stage, if you can have the KPIs, which is a very technical term for some people, even for me, the key performance indicators, very common for all the three stakeholders, same. Or let's put it very simply, the SDG goals. It says everyone has a SDG goal on his business card, or in their presentation you'll see a SDG 5, 3, 1, 2 and all that, right? It's very clearly mentioned the targets, the indicators, and the performance, right? So if you can use that as a baseline, as a common denominator, I think all the stakeholders can work on that and then progress forward. So whether it's a government or a private or a community or even startups, which is again it's private, but I would consider private in two phases. Something like a bigger group like Lufthansa is big private, and some company like us as social entrepreneurs is a smaller private. So I think a common denominator needs to be accounted for to bridge the gap.
Okay. And what about you, Ricardo? Because Destinia is a tour operator, but you work on a global level. So not only do you have the public and private tussle.
You know, you said something that is super interesting, that is after the pandemic, we have found that a lot of travelers are really conscious and are looking for sustainable travel. So we have found something that is super complicated, that is we have found the demand. Okay, great. Now we need the offer and we need to connect the offer and the demand. For example, we are selling in 95 countries currently, and sometimes we cannot offer some kind of product because we are not able to create this product on a local basis. And this is the reason we need to start with the entrepreneur, because the entrepreneur is able to create on the local basis and is able to really keep and stay on the local, on the town, on the village, on the rural area, in order to keep everything sustainable. And this is the way we can really speed and accelerate the improvement of the rural areas.
Okay.
Just to add to what you were
of course.
saying, you know, his company is an OTA, very renowned, big OTA. You got 32 villages here. I mean, we would love to have experiences in those villages, if those villages have connectivity. It's very simple, you know, the entrepreneurs are here, the villages are here, and here you have the OTA. That's how you need to merge it. That's how you bridge the gap.
And that's the trigger, you know, because once your product is online and you have the public sector that is really promoting and really creating this demand, you start to see the booking and see the travelers and the magic start to happen.
Magic.
I can see you're going to be the most popular man at dinner later. So, but also the biggest challenges identified by the UNWTO were infrastructure and skills. So for instance, 2 weeks ago, I was in the Philippines and we were filming in a surf town called Siargao. So think Bali 30 years ago. And there's up-and-coming restaurants and hotels, yet they import all their food from the mainland, like Mindanao or Manila. Yet there are all these local farmers with all this produce, and it's only been in the last year or so that the NGO has come in and started to connect these people. You know, how difficult is it? And would you agree that infrastructure and skills are the two main things in trying to bridge this gap?
I guess infrastructure is fundamental. Without infrastructure, it's impossible to create the product, or it's super difficult, or we won't be able to create or to get the scale we need. But apart from that, I guess the skills, one of the things you said is one of the tasks of the public sector is to facilitate, to really connect the dots. You know, connect the company, the OTA, the tour operator with the local entrepreneur, with the funds in order to move the things on. And I guess, for sure, skills and infrastructure are two main things.
Would you agree, Paris?
Absolutely. I mean, for us, because we work on destination creation and rural tourism, I'll give you a very simple case study. You know, examples are very tangible to understand. We electrified a village very close on a beautiful lake, and they had resorts near the lake, but the village had no travel and tourists because there was no road connected to it. But we electrified the village, 30 households with solar power. And along the electrification, we set up 5 homestays, which is basically a guest house.
Right.
And then we put them on booking.com. Next time we'll put on yours as well. Sorry.
Well done.
Yes.
Next time. Well
Next
done.
time. And we saw travelers going to those homestays. And the next thing we thought was, it's clear skies, it's Himalayas, and the light is not much. Let's start astrotourism. So that village became an astro stay village. People called it an astro stay village. So the travelers from the nearby resort started coming in the night to that village just for the astrotourism and the astronomy and stargazing. 1 year later, the government started making a road, and the phone connectivity came in, and the water pipeline came in. Now you have every house a homestay, you get good travelers in, there is a water conservation, water harvesting system. We promote now 30 homestays from that village. And now that village has light, it has medical facility upgraded, it has water, it has homestays. So that's how you upgrade a village to a destination in a very prescribed manner.
That's fantastic. See, it's chicken and egg syndrome, isn't it? I would have thought the road would have come first and then the tourism.
Yeah, it's very subjective to what happens next, right? So this just triggered to the government that seems like there's a lot of traction happening, a lot of pressure around. The local mayor mentioned something the local mayors can also do, is automatically things starts happening when you show them a good pilot.
And it's all about changing lives, isn't it? What does it feel like for you, Paris, when you see these villages that have totally transformed, and you've given them an economic lifeline, haven't you?
So we started this is the 10th year of our business. We started in 2013, and now we've electrified more than 215 villages in the Himalayas. And there are many more. I was in ITB last week, and we were speaking to some guy from Tajikistan, and the guy comes from Bolivia. So we have villages across the world which are so remote yet very beautiful. For us, I believe financing is a very important step, because you just can't go into a village and electrify it. You need finance for it. So we conduct expeditions where travelers fund for the cost. But nowadays we have this climate financing also coming in, the carbon financing. If you use it intelligently, all these destinations can not only become, climate positive, but can also give back to the, corporates certain offsets which they can play with as well. So I think it's, for us, it's always going forward, looking at creating more villages in a holistic manner, which will in turn create more entrepreneurs. So that's the vision we are looking at.
Absolutely.
Great. And what about you, Ricardo? I guess you see both ends of the spectrum, but can you give me some examples of lives that have changed with like smaller offerings, smaller villages that have booked on your
when you
site?
are looking at the things at the scale, it's complicated to go to the detail, and it's true, it's super complicated because you can see it directly. But the point is, we are selling. The intermediaries in the travel industry have been creating destinations since 50 years ago. The tour operators started, the airlines did it too, and now we have the capability to really create new destinations and to add secondary destination to the main destination. You can go to Madrid and later visit another village.
As a complement.
And this is the kind of product that we really need to offer value. And one thing that is very important is we really need to understand in which part of the value chain we are, and how can we offer value, because we cannot do everything. We cannot create the demand and create the offer and connect everything. No, we cannot do it. We have to understand where we are and how can we offer value to the chain.
Okay, well that's wonderful. We are out of time, but it's so fulfilling to know that there's so many new destinations still coming on board. When you think that tourism is still growing, there's small villages that are doing so well, and that you're able to help people that never thought they would be able to tap into tourism like this.
So I'm actually looking at these 30 villages which we showcased today to try and see if we can support them anyhow and get some kind of work going there and get them onto his website, right?
Yes. So yeah, it's really inspiring. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Good discussion.